Good morning students, welcome to the third semester of BCA program. Hope all of you are fine at home. I know all of you are eager to come to the college and so are we to see you in the college. But because of this COVID-19 situation, we are starting with online classes. I am Professor Nagesh Patil teaching you for the first time. I am teaching subject object-oriented programming using Java, a programming language like C programming language which we have studied in the earlier semester. First we will start with the fundamentals of object-oriented programming. So let's start. Okay. Session 1, Introduction to Object-Oriented Programming. So before going through the introduction to object-oriented programming, we should first know some of the background of programming language. So we will first discuss the background of programming language, then we'll come to object-oriented programming. Okay, let's start. Programming languages, as you have studied programming language C and you have studied some basics about programming language. As you know, programming languages have been categorized into three important categories. These three important categories are machine level language, assembly level language and high level language. So machine level language, it is comprised of ones and zeros. That simply means the instructions needs to be written in the combinations of ones and zeros. It is the native language of a computer. That simply means a computer understands machine level language. So computer understands only ones and zeros. Now writing program in machine level language, it is very difficult because if you misplace 1 or 0, that will cause a problem. Say if I ask you to write a simple program, say addition of two numbers in machine level language, so for that you need to write it in combinations of ones and zeros. That is, for example, you can see here, a machine level language may look something like this, combinations of ones and zeros. Every instruction, you may say add, addition, that has to be specified in combination of ones and zeros, which is very, very difficult. Even a simple program, like I have said, addition, may take hours of time to write the program. So machine level language, yes, it is very difficult to understand, to debug and to write. Then we have one more category of language, that is assembly language. This is an improvement over the machine level language. In assembly level language, instead of the combinations of ones and zeros, some mnemonics are used, English like words are used for different operation. Say if you want to write a program for addition of two numbers, now in the earlier case we were writing this instruction in combinations of ones and zeros. Here in assembly level language, the same instruction can be written by using some mnemonic. For example, you can see here add al comma num. So this is to add two numbers, and here instead of that 1 0 1 zeros or combination of ones and zeros, we have used some words. So this makes it a bit easier than the machine level language. Now as we are not writing this in machine level language, we are writing it in assembly level language, we need to convert this into machine level language. Why conversion is needed? Because computer understands only machine level language. So assembly level language needs to be converted into machine level language for the machine to understand it. So see, this is assembly level language. Then we have a language that is high level language. Again, this is a big step forward to easier programming, that is high level language. The syntax of high level language, it is similar to English. If you have already studied C programming language, looking at the C programming language, you will understand that it is like you're using English like words to code your program. Now, even these high level programming languages are divided into two major groups. These groups are procedure oriented programming, and another one, it is object oriented programming. Now, procedure oriented and object oriented, the language which we have studied, that is C, it is procedural oriented programming language. Okay, let's see one by one what is procedural oriented programming language and object oriented programming language. Procedural oriented programming language, as I have told you, you have already studied about procedural oriented programming. You have studied C programming language. So procedural oriented programming, it is based on procedure calls, which is locating a specific task in a procedure that are called by main program code whenever a task needs to be completed. When it is done, the program control will return to the main program. In procedural level language, the program is written in terms of procedures or functions, and these functions are called from the main function. You have already written C programs, and in that you can see you write a main program or main function, and from the main function you make a call to different other functions which are available in the program. So in procedural level language, the program is divided into procedures or functions. All early high level languages are procedural languages. Some of the examples are C, COBOL, Fortran, Lisp, Perl, HTML, VBScript. These are some examples of procedural oriented programming language, and one of this you have already studied, that is C programming. Now about object oriented programming. Now what is object oriented programming? Object oriented programming is a programming paradigm that relies on the concept of classes and objects. So this is based on the concept of classes and objects. Whereas your procedural oriented programming, it is based on the concept of functions or procedures. Here the object oriented programming, it is used to structure a software program into small reusable pieces of code blueprints which are used to create objects. That simply means the program is structured in forms of objects. In procedural, the program is structured in the form of procedures. In object oriented, the program is structured in form of objects. Examples of object oriented programming languages are C++, Visual Basic.NET and Java. These are some examples of object oriented programming languages. Okay, let's see some of the differences between object oriented programming language and procedural oriented programming. So the differences are, the first, the type column, then procedural oriented programming, and then we have a column that is object oriented programming. In the type, we have types based on which we have identified the differences. First is divided into. So procedural oriented programming is divided into small parts called as functions, and object oriented, it is divided into small parts called as objects. So this is divided, the program is divided into functions in procedural and in objects in object oriented language. Now the second type is importance. In procedural oriented programming language, the importance is given to functions as well as sequence of actions. No importance is given to data in procedural oriented language. But in case of object oriented languages, the importance is given to data rather than procedures or functions. So importance is given to data than functions. Next is approach. POP follows top-down approach, whereas OOP follows bottom-up approach. OOP follows bottom-up approach. What is this top-down and bottom-up approach? So top-down approach begins with high-level design and ends with low-level design or development. Whereas in case of bottom-up approach, we begin from low-level design to the high-level design. For example, if you consider a C program, in a top-down approach, you first write a main function, and all sub-functions are called from the main function. So you first design your main function, and then sub-functions are written based on the requirements. So all the functions, sub-functions are written based on the requirements. Whereas in bottom-up approach, the code is developed for modules, and then these modules are integrated with the main functions. That simply means the sub-functions are written first, and then these are integrated in main functions. So top-down and bottom-up, in simple words, by taking an example, in top-down, first main function, then sub-functions based on requirements. In bottom-up, first sub-functions are written and then we integrate it in main function. So this is top-down and bottom-up approach. So POP, it is based on top-down, whereas OOP, it is based on bottom-up approach. Access specifiers. POP does not have any access specifier, no access specifier, but OOP has some access specifiers. It has access specifiers like public, private, protected. There are many other access specifiers available. Now what is the use of these access specifiers? Using access specifier, we can control the access to different data members in the program. Like you can control access to a variable or a method in a program. You can make it restricted. Only some part of the program should be able to access these variables or these methods. So like this, restrictions can be given to the members of your program, but no such facility available in POP, that is procedural oriented program. You can consider your C program itself. Do we have any restriction? Can we specify any restriction on variables or methods? And the answer is no. Anybody can access those methods directly in the program. Next is data moving. In POP, data can move freely from one function to another function in the system, free movement of data. In OOP, objects can move and communicate with each other through member function. That simply means the data cannot move freely in OOP. The objects can communicate only through the member functions available in those objects. Next is expansion. Now to add new data and functions in POP, that is not easy. You cannot easily add additional functionality to your POP based program, whereas OOP provides an easy way to add new data and functions. Adding new things to OOP based languages, it is easier than POP based languages. Next difference is data access. POP, most functions uses global data for sharing that can be accessed freely from function to function in the system. So in POP, global data which can be accessed by all the functions without any restriction, but in case of OOP, data cannot move easily. It cannot move easily from one function to another function. The data can be kept public or private, so we can control the access to data. As the principle of OOP, data is of prime importance, so every facility is provided to control access to the data, to restrict the access to the data. Next is data hiding. POP does not have any proper way for hiding data, so it is less secure. So in POP we cannot hide the data from the rest of the program, whereas in OOP we can hide data. So data hiding facility is provided, and that also provides a security so that data can be hidden from the rest of the program. Next type, overloading. POP, overloading is not possible, and OOP, overloading is possible in the form of function overloading or operator overloading. So overloading simply means having the same name but performing different tasks. For example, writing a function, draw function, which draws a circle, and the same function may draw a rectangle. Means we can have more than one draw function in a program, which one may draw a circle and another may draw a rectangle. But this is not possible in C. Can we have more than one function with the same name in C? The answer is no. We cannot declare more than one function with the same name in C, but this can be done in object-oriented programming. You can have more than one function which is having the same name. Okay, last is examples. The examples of POP based languages are C, VB, Fortran, Pascal. These are some examples of OOP based languages, whereas POP based languages. The examples of OOP based languages are C++, Java, VB.NET and C#.NET. So these are some differences between OOP and POP, that is object oriented programming and procedural oriented programming. Okay, that's it for today's session. In the next session we will discuss some of the important concepts of object oriented programming. If you have any doubts in this first session, you can message me on WhatsApp. Thank you very much.